The time is 8:35, and you're still tuned in to Salam Media with me, Salailo Makwidiri, on a very warm, beautiful Wednesday. Who will govern South Africa and who will garner that lucrative Muslim vote? That's the question we're asking today. If you're confused about who to vote for, what are some of the political parties you should be looking out to vote for in the 2024 general elections? Well, I think you should be listening closely to this interview. We'll be joined by award winning journalist and co author of Who Will Rule Essay and assistant editor for politics and opinion for News 24, Kanita Hunters is joining us on the line. Good morning, Kanita, and thank you so much for joining us on Salam Media.
Thank you very much for having me.
Before we go any further, right, I was having a discussion with my colleague here about the title of the book, Who Will Rule South Africa? Why is it rule instead of govern?
So the idea that we get to, and if you get to the book, it's not we're not answering the question in terms of who's going to win elections. It's a question of who takes South Africa forward to the next phase of the democracy. And so, without any spoilers, to say that the ultimate rule of South Africa is me and you, and we track how the participatory democracy that we have is going to be and has been dispensed of in some ways because we have started to opt out of democracy. And as a result, we have left politics entirely as a function of the politicians. And that's why many of the problems that South Africa faces is because of that phenomenon.
No, I think you've cleared it up nicely there. But the 2024 general elections are slowly picking up pace, and I think a lot of people are looking at different manifestos. Different political parties have launched their manifestos. If you could, in a nutshell, just paint a picture of where we stand, the political landscape of South Africa, and how will that influence the 2024 elections. In summary, how would you put it?
That this elections comes at an interesting time for South Africa. That firstly, we mark 30 years of democracy, which is no small feat, and is a big moment for the country. This election is primed as important as the 1994 elections. And the reason why it has been primed in that way is because it is essentially what is going to determine whether this democracy sustains another 30 years. But more importantly, we're entering into a next phase of our democracy, which is the move away from one-party dominance. And you see, by all polls that has been released in the last few months, ANC majority is under threat, and that the ANC will lose its firm majority, at least in 2 provinces in the country, and possibly nationally. And so that takes the country into an era of coalitions, which changes the political landscape on a provincial level and maybe on a national level for a long time. And so what comes with this 30-year mark is obviously concerns around the future of South Africa. And so this election is being seen as an effort by citizens to reclaim this democracy in an effort to reach the trajectory that South Africa is on, which is one, obviously, of rampant unemployment, persistent load shedding, and a declining economy.
Looking at our democracy, I think you mentioned, something about coalition politics being the future of our country going forward. We're 30 years into the democracy. Does it look and feel like it's mature enough to handle a coalition national government? We've seen how coalitions have worked out at municipal levels, and it hasn't been a pretty picture that was displayed there. Looking at national government, is the potential for success there, and is our democracy ready for it?
I think that our systems and our institutions of the constitution work effectively, and I think that it has been tested and it has withstood the test of time. We have a vibrant constitution. We have a vibrant democracy. We have a robust media ecosystem. So South Africa, I do not buy the argument that we are on a trajectory of a failed state. However, if we do not participate, if we do not take action, if we do not, reclaim this democracy, we do stand a chance of losing it. And so the idea then, through our book, Who Will Rule South Africa, we track the 30 years of the ANC. We unpack the Ramaphosa years and why it met with so much of optimism, and as a result now, there's a sense of failed promise. And then what is the situation in terms of opposition parties? Because we have an anomaly in South Africa where an ANC is on the decline, but opposition parties are not showing massive growth. The DA, according to most polls, remains stagnant. The EFF too showing a little bit of growth, and then the hyper-fragmentation of the opposition with the mushrooming of small parties, to the tune of almost 300 political parties contesting elections. And then this election gets interesting too, because independent candidates can put their hands up and contest for seats in the National Assembly, which was not the case before. And so you contending elements of both the apathy, where people say, why must I vote when I sit in darkness all the time? And then you're also contesting a situation where we have more people voting today than ever, or registered to vote. So the idea then is to get people out to vote, and change the sentiment of the country that politics is not this little small club of the elite that determine whether or not this country fails or succeeds. The trajectory of whether or not South Africa goes on to become a failed state is actually up to me and you.
Kanita, as a Muslim journalist, covering South African politics, how do you see the dilemma facing Muslim voters in the upcoming elections, particularly regarding the stance of the different political parties on international issues? Particularly, Israel's aggression against Palestine.
I think that, the amazing thing about the post-apartheid South Africa is that the Muslim community is pretty much integrated in South African identity. We are South Africans, and so participation and voting is in that context that we want better for South Africa. And that on a hierarchy of issues that affect South Africans, obviously the issue of Palestine hits hard, but I would think not only for Muslim people, but for anybody who cares about human rights. And so the idea is not to cheapen a very serious issue around suspected genocide, as the ICJ has found, to become an electoral issue, but rather, political parties are exposing themselves in terms of who they show allegiance to, and that I think will contribute to election results, where people do not take it lightly that opposition parties, for example, side with Israel, who many say is an apartheid. And so the idea then to say that the ANC will win votes because of its support for the people of Palestine, it's not untrue, but also it's a deeper scenario in terms of people understanding that the ANC's role as a liberation party, but also that the fundamental wrong of genocide and apartheid is something that South Africa can never agree with in any way. And so the fact that you have political parties that kind of have sat on the fence obviously does not sit well with many South Africans, and not only and not only the Muslim community. In terms of, what issues should guide your vote, I think that, a political party stance on a suspected genocide is a very big one. But at the same time, there's also, issues around inequality, poverty alleviation that should guide the South Africans who are Muslim in casting their vote. I think that more than anything, people have become aware of what certain political parties stand for, and I think that what Gulf aggression on Gaza has exposed is, the perhaps long-standing complicity or of some South African political parties, which probably was not exposed previously.
Mm. I think what's going to be interesting for me is maybe you can help in this striking the balance between a political party stance on various global issues, but also, as you mentioned, internally. For let's look at the ANC, for instance. How they have reacted, to the Palestine cause. But also internally, how they are performing at home. So, what would be the best way to strike a balance and ultimately vote depending on looking at both response to international affairs, but also to the work, and the efforts that are being done domestically. What would be the best way to go about it without compromising one over the other?
It really isn't an either-or situation, and it isn't really about viewing it through the lens of international affairs versus a lens of principle, right? And the principle is a commitment to freedom, not only in South Africa, but also for the Palestinian people, for people across the world. And so if that fits well with you, it's a hierarchy of systems of that contending with. I appreciate this political party's moral standpoint when it comes to issues around freedom and international law and etc. But I am intrinsically opposed to this said political party's stance on corruption and their inefficiencies that are leading South Africa down a very dark path. But I think it's redeemable. Whereas another political party, their stance on international issues proves a moral standpoint that I disagree with, and therefore issues around competency doesn't matter because fundamentally, I disagree with their principle. So that's the thinking in terms of how do you weigh out, because you're never going to find the perfect political party, and that's not a good enough excuse to tap out of politics just because you don't have the perfect meal doesn't mean you should not eat.
Yeah.
As simplistic of a metaphor that is. And so the idea then is to say to balance the hierarchy of what responses mean in terms of moral principle.
No, I think you put it well there. You're going to be having an event in conjunction with Salam Media on the 1st of March 2024 at the Andalus Boutique hotel there. What can people that are coming to this event, what can they expect? What are some of the issues you'll be dissecting? Obviously, the book I think is going to be at the forefront of this event, but outside of that, what can people expect?
Well, I think that it's an important event, particularly because of the situation in Durban and KwaZulu-Natal. KwaZulu-Natal is the hotbed of this 2024 elections. It's where the election is going to be won or lost for political parties. The ANC's majority is in decline, and more so in KwaZulu-Natal because of service delivery failures, because of the real failures, even in just the eThekwini municipality. And so we've seen the worst of politics play out in that part of the world, and it's affecting the sentiment. So I think people must come out so that we can take them on a journey of understanding how did we get to where we are today, where are we, and where we head. And I think that the idea of having this discussion, having an important discussion with people who obviously understand the ins and outs of the Durban dynamic and more importantly the Muslim vote, to unpack where we are as a country and to map a way forward. More importantly, I think that this is an exercise in community building for us to come together to discuss, to network, to kind of share our commitment for a prospering South Africa. And so the event is on the 1st of March. I will be coming to Durban. And I think Salam Media audience should attend and people in Durban should attend. It will be a really, really, really interesting and fascinating event.
Well, there you have it, Kanita Hunter. Thank you so much for giving us your time. I'm sure you'll be speaking to us more often leading up to the 1st of March and having that engagement with the Durban people. I think, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. There you have it, Kanita Hunter, the award-winning journalist, co-author of Who Will Rule essay. She's also an assistant editor for politics and opinion for News 24. If you are in Durban or you'd like to make your way to Durban by the 1st of March, be sure to be part of this engagement at the Andalus Boutique. This event is an initiative of Salam Media, and it's about the lucrative Muslim vote and ultimately who will govern South Africa leading to the 2024 general elections. If you'd like to buy some tickets, it's 250 a pop. You can call this number 083 432 963. I repeat, it's 083 432 9163. And then you'll be able to get yourself a ticket. The seats are limited, I should just point it out. So if you're not fast on your fingers and get dialing, you'll be missing out. 250 rands per ticket. The event will be moderated by Inayat Wadi, and on the panel you'll have Dr. Imran Bakas, who's a columnist and political analyst. You'll also have Dr. Faisal Soliman, who's a chairperson of Samnet, and Ibrahim Patel, chief at Siyaxoxa Tech and ex-president of Minar Chambers. So 250 rands per ticket. I'm sure it's going to be a really interesting event. I know that I'll be there. I think we all need to be, starting to have these conversations leading up to the 2024 general elections about who we should be voting for. And I think it's really interesting to hear different views because sometimes we can get caught up in our own way of thinking and understanding things, not knowing that, there's a whole other world, there's a whole other, understanding waiting for us out there. So on the 1st of March 2024, Andalus Boutique Hotel, I'll repeat the number again. I think Olana put it on the screen. It's 083 432 9163. The tickets are 250 rands per ticket and seats are limited. On the 1st of March, make your way to the Andalus Boutique to get a really interesting engagement with Kanita Hunter and a host of panelists about who you should ultimately vote for. This is not telling you, but just giving you different insights and analyzing the South African political landscape. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to AMA. They opened the Amman School of Excellence in Finetown yesterday. We were there. I was speaking to Ashraf Gangreka, member of African Muslims Agency, about how important it was for them to finally launch the Amman School of Excellence in Finetown and all the good that it will be doing for the children in that part of the world. We'll chat to you after this here on Salam Media.
Send food and send kindness to those who have